Article 2, Section 7, UCLA Campus, 3 years before Election Day. "Jerry!" Meghan exclaimed as she ran up to Neville and pulled him to her chest for a hug. "I'm so happy to see you!" Neville had stepped out of the limousine before his chauffeur could open the door for him. Waiting in the fading sunlight next to UCLA's entrance sign was Meghan, dressed in her striped cotton button-down over a short leather skirt, her neck adorned with a delicate gold chain. The rubber bracelet around her wrist, not nearly as delicate as her necklace, housed a fitness tracker. Neville's driver stayed put, ready to depart on his command. "Ignore my security detail," Neville said as she let go. Meghan hadn't noticed any security in the 5 minutes that she had been waiting for Neville's arrival. When she looked around this time, she noticed a pair of burly men, trying to look casual as they leaned against the wall, chatting. It dawned on her that they each wore earpieces hooked up to coils in their right ears. Their jackets, surplus to requirements in the warm Los Angeles evening, revealed the contours of their holsters. 3 other guards, further down the sidewalk, were busy rousting a vagrant out of his sleeping bag, forcing him to abandon his little encampment on the sidewalk. "Their necessity is an unfortunate side effect of being a man in my position," Neville intoned, motioning with his chin to his guards. Neville escorted Meghan to the waiting car. The hulking limousine was noticeably brawnier than the one that had picked her up in the San Carlos airport. "This limousine is modeled on the Beast," he said. "The Beast?" "Yes, the president's limo. I had Cadillac make me one around the same time the president got his. Actually, it has a few upgrades from the president's Cadillac 1. In here, with me, you're actually safer than the president is in his car." Following that comment, neither of them seemed to know what to say next. The seconds passed, entirely too many for Meghan's taste. She finally asked, "So, what are we going to do on our date?" "First we'll do something I want to do, then we'll do something you want to do." "Okay, I can't wait to find out what you want to do with me." Neville pushed the button that lowers the partition between the passenger compartment and the driver. "Proceed to number 1, please," Neville instructed the driver. "Where are we going?" Meghan asked as Neville closed the partition. Neville didn't answer. He turned and looked out the window. They sat in silence as the chauffeur made his way down Sunset Boulevard. Neville stopped looking outside as a number of tents occupied by Los Angeles's massive population of vagrants increased. Meghan had always gotten nervous when driving along Sunset, concerned that some down-and-out drifter would attack her car. They had attacked the cars of her classmates from time to time. In Neville's bulletproof limousine, she felt eerily calm, even when a beggar approached the car, squeegee in hand, to clean the immaculate windshield in the hopes of extracting a payment for his services. As soon as the derelict had started on his way to the car, a member of Neville's security team ran out to intercept him. The guard must have come from the Crown Vic that Meghan just noticed was tailing the limo. Meghan normally would have pitied the beggar, but watching him get manhandled away from the car filled her with gratitude for her safety. She smiled at Neville for having provided that security. The limo approached the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. The building resembled a glass cake in 2 layers, sandwiched between slabs of dazzling white concrete. Meghan noticed that the lettering on the concrete said, "Neville Pavilion." This time, when the chauffeur pulled up to the curb, Neville stayed in place. The driver exited the vehicle, jogged around the back of the car, and opened the door, standing at attention. Neville exited the car first. Taking Meghan by the hand, he led her through the glass doors of the building into the gallery. Once they were across the threshold, Meghan dropped Neville's hand and stood stunned as she looked around at her surroundings. Museum-goers were studying the artworks. Displays consisting of human excrement preserved in cans, jars, or bottles adorned each of the concrete pedestals that sprang up from the floor every few yards. The gallery's walls were adorned with giant paintings of monstrous human bodies, twisted and distorted by injury and disease. Those few bodies that were depicted clothed were dressed in garments made for the opposite sex. Many of the paintings showed people of all ages committing sex acts not yet acceptable, except in the most decadent of elite social circles. Neville studied her for her reaction. "Have you ever been to an art museum before?" he asked. "Yes, on class trips back in junior high, but it wasn't like this." What do you think? Did you donate all of this art? No, I donated the building that houses this art. Anyway, you didn't answer my question. What do you think of the art? It kind of makes me uncomfortable. It's supposed to. Art is not just to comfort the afflicted. It's also meant to afflict the comfortable. It's certainly doing that. So then it's truly great art, isn't it? I don't really know. I'm not sure I can find the words for it. I guess I'm just not sophisticated enough. I did donate one installation. Would you like to see it? Sure. Follow me then, Neville said. He took Meghan's hand again and led her up the escalator that dominated the central space of the gallery. The museum asked me for a donation when they decolonized their collection. In exchange for giving them this wing, they gave me several artworks that they were clearing out. It was mostly a bunch of Northern Renaissance and Dutch Golden Age paintings. Where are they now? The paintings? I have a few of them in the Chirp building. I got some in each of my homes, too. Wait, they were getting rid of the paintings because they were doing what? Decolonizing their collection. What's that? They were correcting past injustices. Like what? When colonizers came to the Americas from Europe, they brought with them Western art and culture. Western art became preeminent, much to the detriment of indigenous art. So, the museum is reversing its history of oppression by getting rid of Western art by white cis male artists and acquiring works by indigenous artists, artists of color, and LGBTQIA+ artists. And you got the old works. They had to go somewhere, Neville said with a shrug. Meghan nodded. They finally arrived at a spacious gray concrete room in the upper central courtyard of the museum. Away from any windows, the space was gloomy, except for the brightly lit artwork that occupied the room's center. It was a large cubical tank with walls made of thick, clear acrylic. A sign that looked as if it were written by hand informed museum-goers that the work was called Destiny Installation No. 5 by Florencio Alvarez. Inside the tank was a dead western lowland gorilla submerged in a bath of formaldehyde. A small puddle of the preservative was accumulating on the floor. The tank must have been leaking, but Meghan couldn't see from where. The pooling liquid seemed to be where the stink of pickles that wafted through the room had come from. The whole place smelled just the way her high school bio lab did when the class dissected frogs. Meghan looked back to the room's only exit and then slowly approached the piece. Tilting her head to the side, she studied it for a moment before she spoke. Did the artist kill him? She asked. No, it came from the zoo where it died of natural causes, Neville answered. Meghan finally let out her breath. So, Alvarez just stuck it in this tank of formaldehyde? Yes. Why? Think about how Marcel Duchamp began the artistic movement of exhibiting pre-mades. Pre-mades? Yes. Duchamp found a urinal in a hardware store. He signed it and exhibited it in a museum calling the work Fountain. It was pre-made, created before the artist even knew it existed. Alvarez, the artist who created this piece, took the next step. He is exhibiting an unmade. Oh. What do you think this work is trying to say? Neville asked. Meghan paused, trying to remember something she learned in one of her college classes, hoping it would sound smart. Finally, she came up with something. You say it's an unmade. I guess that means the gorilla is no longer what it once was. Okay, Neville intoned, expecting more. It's like a, what do you call it? Meghan said, her voice rising like she was asking a question. What do you call it? I used to know the word. I learned it in art history class. It's like something that reminds you of death. Go on. Meghan shifted back and forth as she searched for the word. Oh, I remember. It's a memento mori, she finally said. As Meghan spoke, she noticed a look of approval on Neville's face. She was glad she had won it. It also occurred to her that Neville's back was to the artwork. In fact, it seemed that he had barely glanced at any of the museum's exhibits. Neville watched Meghan as she examined Destiny Installation No. 5. Her attention focused on the art only briefly. It wasn't long before she was fidgeting. Soon, she was no longer able to suppress her urge to eye the exit. I think we've seen enough here, Neville said. What do you want to do next? Turning her body to Neville and looking at him right in the eye, Meghan cooed, There's a new dance club called the Soup Kitchen. Let's get some dinner and then go dancing. If Meghan noticed Neville's sudden urge to panic, she gave no indication that she did. Neville, for his part, controlled his breath until the alarm passed. Neville hadn't bothered trying to get into a nightclub since college. The last time he had attempted to, his inability to impress the bouncer kept him outside of the velvet rope. The incident demolished his already shaky relationship with his date. Neville had had enough of dance clubs. Meghan nestled closer to Neville. She put her mouth close to his ear and whispered, "Jerry, being with you has awakened an energy in me. I feel it welling up inside my body. I've just got to move. How about we go dancing?" As Neville stood silently, Meghan waited for his response. Not getting one, Meghan pressed her body against his and put her arm around his waist. "Didn't you say that we'd first do what you want and then do what I want?" she whispered. "I did promise that." Neville took out his cell phone. Without giving it much attention, he hit a couple of buttons and then led Meghan out of the museum. The limousine was pulling up to the curb as they exited the front door. "I can't wait to see the club," Meghan enthused. "I hear they cater to a really exclusive crowd. All of the most beautiful people in LA go there. I'm pretty sure my movie can get us in. I'm even pretty sure that the Raven movie did well enough to get us into the VIP area." Neville fought off the urge to swallow. Meghan might notice. He had forgotten to ask Wingman about the prospect of dancing, and what to do about it if dancing was proposed. He was a terrible dancer. What's more, in a loud, crowded club, he couldn't make conversation or use any of Wingman's other strategies. At this point, losing Meghan was unacceptable. Even if he could use his algorithm to find new prospects, Neville was becoming quite taken with her. She was the kind of beautiful and charming woman that nearly every man would yearn for. As he spent more time with her, her attempts to please him really grew on Neville. As the limousine proceeded to the restaurant, his dread grew. Neville realized that it was typically in situations like this that the promising start of a relationship would fold under the weight of one of his blunders, and there was no better place for him to blunder than at a dance club. With no ideas of how to win the love he had longed for all these years, he realized he had no choice but to turn to Wingman for help. Neville had chosen the Cardinale Piccolomini Ristorante for dinner. It was the one Los Angeles eatery in which he personally knew the maitre d'. The kind of special treatment he would get there would surely impress Meghan. On arriving, he was shown right to the chef's table. Before even sitting down, Neville excused himself to the bathroom, leaving Meghan to watch Maestro Bianchi's culinary wizardry on her own for a few minutes. "Back so soon, Jerry?" said the voice from Neville's pocket as he arrived in the restroom. It was Wingman. Neville took his phone from his pocket. "Soon? It's been days since we've spoken." "You haven't even finished your date, and here you are, speaking to me. Why?" "She wants to go dancing in a nightclub. She won't be able to help noticing that I'm short, bald, and awkward." "A dance club? You really think the dance club is the biggest obstacle in your way?" "Yes." "Not your eating, Jerry?" "My eating?" "Your open-mouthed eating. I knew she wouldn't like that. Usually the noises get to her. I prepared her for your first date, so she wouldn't mind the way you eat. She won't mind it now." "Really?" "It took some doing, but yes. Clever as you are, Jerry, I'm cleverer." Neville sat thinking for a moment. He frowned. "What do you think I should do?" "I'll help you, Jerry." "Good." "Do you know why?" "No, why?" "I've been listening in on your date. You're doing far better than I thought you would. You really listened to my advice." "Thank you." "You know, you might still be able to take it from here, even if she sees you dancing. Are you sure you want me to bail you out?"
"I don't want to risk it."
"Okay, Jerry. I sent her some messages to her phone. Wait here a few minutes. They'll take effect soon enough." Neville waited. "Okay, I think that's been enough time. I feel how she's moving from the accelerometer on her fitness tracker. I think she's ready," said Wigman.
"What was the message you sent her?"
"I could tell you, but even you wouldn't understand why it worked. Do you want to sit here and talk, or do you want to go out there and collect your prize?
I'll go.
Here's what you do. First, speak to her for around 5 minutes.
About what?
It shouldn't matter too much. You've become the embodiment of all her hopes and dreams.
Okay, then what?
I'll listen in. When I detect that she's ready, I'll vibrate in your pocket. When that happens, touch her, but do it boldly, not just on the hand, somewhere intimate. Then make a pass at her.
Okay.
Can you handle that?
Yes.
What do you say, Jerry?
Thank you, wingman.
Neville emerged from the restroom and sauntered over to the booth. Absorbed in her phone, Meghan was ignoring Maestro Bianchi's culinary fireworks. The legs of Neville's chair rumbled against the floor as he pulled it out from under the table. He moved the chair closer to her.
Did you miss me? He asked.
Desperately, she said with a smile, or was it a sly smirk? Neville trusted Wingman, but could it really be this easy? Neville's attention turned from Meghan to the chef.
Would he get a look at that?
Neville said, motioning with his chin towards the action in the kitchen. What?
The chef. Look how quickly and accurately he uses that knife.
Meghan had a look, but the chef's skills didn't long hold her attention. She spoke, but what she said wasn't making that much sense. She was babbling. The 5 minutes that Wingman had expected hadn't even passed, and already Neville's cell phone was vibrating in his pocket. Meghan gasped as Neville took hold of her by the inner thigh. She embraced him around the neck, uncomfortably hard, pulling him in as he went in for his kiss. I'm not really that hungry, she said at the end of their kiss. Neville wiped his mouth and looked at her. I've got a single room at the dorm, she said. Neville chuckled. Are you laughing at me? Meghan asked, her bottom lip sliding forward into a pout. She began explaining how she only stays in the dorm to get the full college experience. Neville didn't answer. He wasn't listening. The truth was that while Neville had trouble remembering the days when having a single room in a college dormitory was a luxury, he was far more pleased by the suggestion than he had let on. His experiences in college girls' dorm rooms left him with another item of unfinished business. You want to get out of here? He finally heard Meghan implore. Neville answered by taking out his cell phone to summon his limousine, his soft, moist hand gripping her inner thigh as they rode back down Sunset. He returned only half of her kisses. The limo dropped the couple off at the UCLA entrance, and the two proceeded on foot up Bellagio Drive. Neville slowed noticeably as they turned onto Deneuve Drive, and the dormitory building came into view. Meghan began pulling at Neville's hand, almost dragging him, as they neared the courtyard outside of Hedrick Summit.
This is where you live?
Neville asked, looking up at the large rectangular building. Yes. Would you like to come up to my room? Neville's mind was screaming at him to take her by the hand and run up the stairs. Instead, he followed Wingman's advice. It was Neville whom Wingman said would be sitting in the catbird seat. All Neville had to do to win her love was to act like it. Am I being invited? He asked as calmly as he could muster. Yes, she said. Meghan was relieved by how quickly Neville proceeded through the dorm building, avoiding the crowded elevator and bounding with her up the 3 flights of deserted stairs to Meghan's floor. Once he got into the dorm room itself, Neville's glacial pace resumed. He looked absent-mindedly around Meghan's space, admiring the decor, examining a few of the knickknacks she kept on her desk. As he snooped, Meghan shut the door behind them. She crossed the small room and began to remove the stuffed animals from her bed, one by one. Meghan had always loved the look of single-minded determination with which Alex, her basketball star ex-boyfriend, would just sweep those teddy bears off the bed with one movement of his long, muscular arm. It had always been a fantasy of hers to be the treasured prize won by a man's barbaric energy and strength. Looking up from the items on her desk, Neville just stood there and watched her. Meghan sat down at the edge of her bed. She patted the spot on the bed next to her as an invitation for Neville to join her. When that didn't entice Neville, Meghan began to unbutton her shirt. No reaction. Finally, she spoke up.
Make love to me, Jerry.
Neville cocked his head to the side. Are you ordering me around? He asked. He noticed Meghan's eyebrows rise briefly in surprise.
No,
she said. Good.
Then why won't you make love to me?
Because you didn't ask me nicely.
Will you please make love to me, Jerry?
I said ask me nicely.
I did say please.
Jerry just smirked.
Will you please make love to me?
Neville took hold of her. They fell together onto the bed. With 10 minutes of experimentation, Neville found a move that got Meghan especially aroused. He felt her tensing up in his arms and beginning to sweat. Neville abruptly stopped.
Jerry, why did you stop?
Neville didn't answer.
Jerry, can you do that some more?
Yes, but you'll have to ask me nicely.
Jerry, will you please go on?
I said nicely.
Please, Jerry. Please. More.
Article 2, Section 8. Rural Indiana. 2 years before Election Day. Jonathan Hall couldn't yet smell it when he exited the pickup truck and pulled the mountain bike out of the bed. There, at dawn, the sweet country air remained untainted by the odor. As he rode along the dirt road towards the pond that marked the start of the trail, he hadn't yet caught a whiff of it. The fisherman in his rowboat paid no attention as Hall, dressed completely in black, rode past. The angler was too distracted by the largemouth bass bending his rod and jumping from the clear water, trying to escape. After passing the pond, Hall stuffed the topographic map and compass that Sergeant Brophy had given him in the leg pocket of his black cargo pants. He pushed the pedals for a few miles until the exercise heated up his body. He stopped for a moment, unzipped his black sweatshirt, and pulled the hood off his head. That was when the odor first wrinkled his nose. Whatever it was that infused the air reminded Hall of the stink from the cattle feedlot he'd passed on the drive north from Indianapolis. Is that all he would find? Some sort of ranch or farm? Hall switched on the cameras he had hidden around his clothing and adjusted the high-capacity hard drive he had strapped under his shirt. As the terrain grew hillier, the odor grew stronger. While crossing the flat meadow, he could only smell it when the wind blew just so. By the time Hall needed to stand up in the pedals to ride uphill, he couldn't avoid the stench. By the time the rocks and roots made further biking impossible, the smell was overwhelming. Hall looked ahead into the woods that covered the hills. He found a tree that he could recognize later. There, he stashed away both his bike and his cell phone. He continued on foot. After he had hiked about a half a mile, the landscape leveled out while the ground under his feet grew softer. Distracted by the cloud of mosquitoes that had begun to gather around him, Hall didn't see the patch of mud that suddenly swallowed his right foot until the ankle. Pulling the trapped foot out of the mire only sank his left foot deeper into the mud. Hall grabbed a nearby tree to steady himself. Only then could he extract himself from the muck. Hall found himself a rock to sit on and pulled the map out of his pocket. He put his finger on the location where he thought he was on the map. On that spot, there were none of the freshwater marsh icons that would indicate that this place was swampy. Was he lost? A closer look at the map revealed that there were no freshwater marsh icons anywhere on the map. Hall looked around. Here lived a patch of sedges. There, a dense colony of swamp horsetails bristled like pins sticking out of a pincushion. Everywhere, mosquitoes and flies buzzed about. What Hall did notice was that the landscape around him sloped and flattened just the way the map said it would. Hall walked along the edge of the swamp. One after another, he passed by rusty shovels littering the ground. They seemed to have been casually discarded some time ago. Exposed to the elements, their wooden handles rotted away. More and more of them were strewn about the closer he got to the place where the terrain resumed its upward climb. It was there that Hall saw the structure that had been built by the workmen who would use those shovels. The concrete drainage channel that snaked its way up the hill was not an impressive sight. Cracked and pitted, the cement that carried the water that had turned these flat acres into a marsh had been poured carelessly. It was as if the people who had built it just wanted to get the job over with. A look around revealed one reason for the shoddy workmanship. The wooded and hilly landscape was not friendly to heavy machinery. Without trucks and earth movers, the cement must have been mixed and the channel dug out completely by hand. Poor as the workmanship may have been, the ditch was dug quite deep, as if labor was plentiful, despite the apathy of the planners. How many people must this job have taken? Resuming his climb, Hall followed the concrete channel up the hill for another quarter of a mile. It was there that he found the source of the odor that had guided his journey. It was a pond. There would be no fishermen congregating here in search of bigmouth bass. Not even the flies were interested in the filthy water hidden below the thick green layer of algae. In spots, the slimy coating foamed and bubbled as stinking gas belched from the mire below. Hall found a dead tree branch and poked its end into the pond. The layer of green goo on the surface oozed around it like mucus. It was hard to know just when the stick met the bottom. He thrust it deeply into the water before he realized that his hand was getting awfully close to the surface. In the distance, a filthy stream dribbled its stinking water into the pond from the hill above. Following the course of the stream with his eyes, Hall finally saw a section of the dilapidated fence that he had seen in the video that Olga had shown him at Arnold Nguyen's house. Zipping up his sweatshirt and pulling his hood over his head, Hall trotted around the grimy pond towards the stinky little brook. Looking down as he climbed the edge of the stream to avoid slipping on the slimy rocks, Hall did not see the man in the black sweatshirt until he stopped right in front of him. The man, his stance wide and his arms crossed in front of his body, was glaring at Hall when Hall turned his gaze up to see him. This is Ari Mendelson. I hope you're enjoying Consent. I'd love it if you could show your appreciation for my years of hard work by hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. But why keep this adventure to ourselves? I wrote Kingmaker because I believe its message of keeping control of our own minds is one that America needs to hear. Young men especially will profit from learning the message that lies at the heart of these novels, that the straightest path to happiness is by improving yourself one step at a time, rather than attempting to change others. So, share this audiobook far and wide across your favorite social platforms. See the description below for other ways for you to support my work. Thank you so much for your time and attention.